Hello, my name is Tony. I guess this was the end of the road for director Robert Aldrich and me. This was where we parted company. He made 3 more movies. The Choir Boys, which I saw in the cinema and didn't enjoy particularly, very disappointing. I've only ever seen it once and maybe a revisit would cast it in a different light now, but as you can probably tell, I'm in no big rush. His final 2, The Frisco Kid and All the Marbles, aka The California Dolls, I haven't watched. I keep meaning to, they don't appeal to me the same way as previous Aldrich pictures do, and I really want to maintain an unimpeded focus on the ones I loved or at least liked a great deal. I don't want to lose that clarity of vision, as Blind Pew remarked just before someone landed the black spot on him. Thus, Twilight's last Gleaming, not his best but certainly a moderately entertaining slice of melodramatic action hokum with a novel spin on nuclear terrorism, industrial scale blackmail and a call out for transparent government. Yeah, right, talk about a lost cause, jeez. Air Force General Lawrence Dell Burt Lancaster was incarcerated in a military prison facility. He and 3 fellow inmates Powell Paul Winfield, Garvas Burt Young and Hoxie William Smith have bust out of the chokey we don't see or know how, and managed to infiltrate a nuclear missile base in Montana that Dell helped design, so presumably he had some idea of how to get them inside. It ain't no picnic, as Hoxie is a hair-trigger psycho dick who guns down an Air Force guard. Dell is displeased with this action, so he blows Hoxie away. Now they're down to 3 men, but it's enough to gain control of the base and 12 tactical nuclear warheads. They isolate the control room and imprison the 2 personnel running it, one of whom, Sandy Richard Jekyll, is Dell's old comrade in arms. Why are they doing this? Well, number of reasons. Primary for Dell is for the US president to come clean on national TV about a secret document detailing the real reason for the Vietnam War. Despite knowing that the war was unwinnable, the administration of the time persisted purely as a show of force directed towards the Soviet Union, making a point that America would go to extraordinary lengths when it came to, waging war on people and places. Millions died needlessly. When Dell was going to blow the whistle, he got arrested on a trumped-up murder charge and the key was thrown away. No one would listen. Bit like when I say stuff. What else do they want? Oh yeah, $10 million, Air Force One as a getaway vehicle to any country they specify, and the current US president as a hostage, and 3 Happy Meals with fries to go and a lifelong subscription to Mad Magazine. And if they don't get it, Dell will launch all the missiles and start World War III. Not like he's asking for much when you consider the stakes, although the Happy Meals may be pushing it. The incumbent President Stevens, Charles Durnin, had no knowledge of the document. It was before his time, and he's mightily shocked when he discovers what it contains. His chiefs of staff, not so much, as some of them, like Secretary of Defense Guthrie Melvin Douglas, Secretary of State Renfrew Joseph Cotton, and Director of the CIA Whitaker Leif Erikson, have been around a while and were sort of involved in it, up to their necks. Air Force General Mackenzie Richard Widmark was also in the mix, and instrumental in Dell's downfall. He's been put in charge of the air and ground forces, given the job of regaining control of the silo before the end of the world begins. Mackenzie believes that Dell is bluffing, a bit too cocksure for everyone's good, because Dell is in fact deadly serious. So begins a fairly tense and gripping game of nuclear chess between the 3 men in control of the most devastating payload imaginable, the US president and his team of morally tarnished turkeys, and the US military on the ground under the command of the underestimated Mackenzie. Based on the pulp novel Viper 3 by Walter Wager, Twilight's Last Gleaming has a premise that is at best improbable and doesn't work all that hard at selling it. Best take it on face value as a sheer fantasy what-if scenario set in a real world of the remotest possibility type. A clue or 2 is given very early on that the audience would be best served by not asking questions or applying curiosity-driven scrutiny to the proceedings. Like, how did 4 men break out of a top-security military prison and know exactly where to be and at what time to hijack a truck transporting the relief crew to the silo? Where'd they get their civilian clothes and the car they were driving? Why is it that the only information you need to provide to gain access to a top-secret nuclear base is your social security number? Such formalities will only frustrate and prove fruitless because you won't be getting any answers. It's one of those films where you're given the setup and you're expected to shut your face and accept it for what it is. I know, it only works so far for me as well. I do like a soupçon more backfill to satisfy my inquiring nature, but here I just had to let it go and move on, and I'm suggesting you might benefit by doing the same. It was a German-US co-production, part funded by Lorimar and filmed in Bavaria. Aldrich heavily relies on split-screen techniques which work okay at some stages but gets too muddled at others, mainly when you're expected to process 4 panels at once, some of which have screens and monitors within screens. Be warned, if split screen ain't your thing, there's a lot of it. Me, I'm not the biggest fan, but I can live with it. It does visually overcomplicate the mix though. The characters and actors portraying them are fine but largely cliched. Great cast admittedly. Lancaster is the disillusioned idealist with a belief in the right of the American people to know the truth whatever the cost. He still believes in America and a president who will do the right thing. I guess even today some people still think that, fucking Burks. Burt Young is a criminal simpleton, quirky and dumb. Paul Winfield is a black activist type with a chip on both shoulders. He turns out to be the most insightful and clued in as to how events will play out. William Smith, the stock trigger-happy psycho of the gang, ain't around very long. After blasting him, Lancaster ruefully admits,
"I chose the wrong man for the job."
Does a hail of lead count as severance pay? Charles Durning is a sympathetic figure as a president who has inherited the sins of his predecessors and is less than happy with having to deal with the mess. A lot of runtime is taken up by him and his cabinet of White House clowns debating what to actually do. It boils down to his being railroaded into the role of hostage, whilst 3 army snipers wait to bring things to a conclusion. Is he expendable in the scheme of things, a politically expedient sacrifice as Powell deduces, or will the truth finally be told? This is Robert Aldrich, one of the most prickly of Hollywood cynics. So what do you think? Oh, and we mustn't forget Richard Widmark, who plays the same character he would play a year later in The Swarm. Only here he gets better direction and lines and a better movie to act in. Aldrich's favoured themes of ordinary men in extraordinary circumstances fighting to macho it out against the odds are consistent throughout. There are moments of high tension, Lancaster and his guys disabling the booby traps, security measures in the control centre, Widmark's team infiltrating the silo to plant a small nuclear device that will incinerate Lancaster and his men, and the missile launch Lancaster initiates in response that only gets aborted when the troops manage to withdraw and there's just 10 seconds left on the timer. Phew. See? He wasn't bluffing. The sets are not all that convincing. One of the characters makes reference to Star Trek, which might have been an added sly dig at the set designers because they do have that 60s Trekkie look about them. Then there's some of the dialogue which I can't believe was expected to be taken entirely seriously. Powell, studying the feeds from the cameras outside the base, notes it's all very quiet out there and voices his suspicion that snipers have been deployed. He's not wrong, you know. And then suggests that one of them could be a midget.
Who knows, maybe they got a midget out there.
What?
Dell's response is that
There are no midgets in the United States Air Force.
yeah, right, someone told Tom Cruise. Twilight's last Gleaming is nowhere near anyone's best work, certainly not Aldrich's. The preposterous premise is, however, quite gripping and does engage the attention if you buy into it for what it is. There's no denying that there are some tense and nail-biting moments in which the director reminds just how fucking good he is at his craft. Then we get these overlong episodes of debate in the White House, aiming for some unflinching critique of government deceit of the public and reinforcing Aldrich's skepticism about Vietnam and the motives for that war. When it comes to telling the truth, you'll get nothing but lies and cover-up is the conclusion, even when the Secretary of Defense swears a solemn oath to the contrary. It flags significantly during these moments, which should have been sharper and leaner. Somewhere in there is a smart and snappy action thriller with salutary messages to convey about the corruption of big government, the corrosive soul-destroying nature of war, the threat of nuclear annihilation, and the issue of trust and truth versus misguided political expediency. Strip out 50%, if not all of the split-screen stuff, trim it from 2.5 hours to 1.5, and tighten the grip all over the place, and in my opinion, it could have been a supremely slick and dazzling little gem, not the big rough diamond it ultimately turned out to be. Thank you sincerely for your time and attention. If you want to prolong your interaction, you could strike like, don't like, leave a comment or subscribe. Patreons get new content earlier, so if you enjoy spending money on losers, I'm more than happy to pick it up this end. Link in the description. That's it for the moment. Back in a while or so with something else. No idea what as yet, but something will arise. See ya, pilgrims!